Hey guys, this is Ryan Denson, also known as the Boston Beer Guy. I hope you're doing well and having an excellent Friday. I would love to welcome you on to this week's episode of Frosty Boi Fridays, where we'll shotgun a Bud Light and then rate a craft beer. As always, this episode is brought to you by Proof Somerville. I would love to welcome on very special guest, Ray Pickup, owner of Rockport Brewing. Ray, thanks for joining the show.
Thanks for having me. Pleasure.
Awesome. Hey, awesome. I appreciate it. So, Ray, before we jump into everything, give me a little bit about what Rockport is and kind of the history behind it.
Sure. So, Rockport Brewing Company was an idea that was formed on Long Beach in Rockport. About 5 years ago, myself and my wife, we were sitting down there just thinking of amenities that Rockport didn't have. And the first thing was a brewery, because Rockport was a dry town up until 2007. So there was a long history before that. Our first release, Hatchet, was named after Hannah Jumper and her Hatchet Gang. So that's a little bit of the background, not to dive too deep into the history in Rockport, but that's kind of how it started as a joke. And we started home brewing, and it kind of turned into what it is now, and it's ever evolving every single day.
Love it. I mean, again, I've had on so many people who started from their houses that have now been, commercialized and been, shipping out their beer and you can buy it all over the place. So it's great to talk to another individual like yourself who started just the way I'm starting right now, just doing home brewing to hopefully make it big. So awesome. Before we jump into the, chugging the beer, doing whatever, we're going to be reviewing Twin Lights. It is a New England styled double IPA. But before we get into that, we have a nice fun beer to drink. So I don't know what you're going to be drinking, Ray, but I'm going to be doing a Bud Light.
So I did not do a Bud Light. Bud Light does not exist in my refrigerator.
It's okay.
But I will be chugging a Wandering Soul Melody Maker.
Absolutely. I have the utmost respect for those guys over there. I'm not going to be shotgunning. I'm actually going to be using this thing called the Draft Top. It's a brand new thing I just got today. It is a mechanism that takes the top of your beer can off to make it easier to drink. I'm going to try this out. We'll see if this was worth it. Awesome. Cheers.
Cheers, man.
You guys can see it really does take out the entire can. It's pretty cool. I like it. I like it so far. Well, awesome. So I made a mess, but so great. So I'm excited to try this beer. Again, thank you for coming by and giving me this as well. But, so the history of the brewing is you started home brewing. I did. I'm going to pour this now. So talk to me a little bit about that. I mean, so what was sort of your setup and what sort of beers did you start out with?
Sure. So we started with an 8-gallon stainless pot, a Blickman burner, and a bunch of plastic carboys in our driveway. And then we just brewed a lot. And I'd rather not get into how much we brewed, because I might get arrested for it. You're only allowed to brew 200 gallons per year as a home brewer. And we might have been right at that line.
Okay, that's it. It's totally fine. What was your favorite beer that you brewed? That maybe that you don't sell at Rockport Brewing right now?
So the favorite one that I brewed was probably the one that you're drinking now. The Twin Lights was one of the first recipes I ever developed.
It's delicious.
It's pretty good. I think there's definitely some room for improvement, as always, just because going from a 1-barrel setup that I have now, scaling up to a 30-barrel, there's still going to be a little bit lost in translation as far as, flavor, mouthfeel, the whole thing. We're still trying to figure it out. Mm-hmm. This is the, sorry for the little burp there.
I do literally all throughout the interview.
So, just scaling it up, it's not really like cooking where you just, triple a recipe and you kind of figure it out, going from, we literally made it 30 times the size that I was used to doing it. So this is our 3rd time brewing it. We're still trying to work out a bunch of the kinks. Mm-hmm. But I think we're getting there. We're getting pretty close. But like I said, there's definitely still room for improvement. And that's just my philosophy with all of our beer. I'm never complacent, and you always got to keep on evolving and keep taste testing and never sacrifice that when you start to get to a bigger level. Which I know a lot of breweries, they like this to keep that thumb on the pulse. Yeah. And once you kind of let your product go a little bit, it's harder to get that horse back in the barn.
So what would you do differently? I mean, what sort of improvements are you looking for the future for future batches?
Sure. So just messing around with the grist percentages, messing around a little bit more with the water profiles. Just simple things as far as the hops. There's only so much lupulin oil that will be, absorbed by, your wort. So
Yeah.
you got to kind of figure out your ratios a little bit more when you scale up to that size. We did go to a 15 barrel batch first before the 30 barrel batch.
All right.
So it's kind of just baby steps of figuring it out, but I think we'll get there pretty soon to really, it's still a very good product. I'm not trying to,
It's a very good product.
at all.
Yeah.
I hope no one takes that way, but I'm always looking to improve it, and still has a little bit more room to where I want it to be, where I know it can, from where it's been in competitions, and I've been brewing it for 5 years, and I probably brewed it 40 to 50 times in 5 years. So I brewed it quite a bit, and I know where I want it to be, and we're getting there.
Okay. Now, so my question for you is, you said water profile. I mean, I know that water is a big thing when it comes to brewing beer. So you started brewing at home. Where do you brew now?
So I still do all my test batches at home. You can probably see it a little bit in the background.
Oh yeah. Okay.
My my whole 1 barrel setup down here with my unit tanks and everything else. So this is still where I do all of my exploratory recipes, and where we're going to be. I'm still, like I said, evolving and changing my recipes every once in a while. If there's something I want to tweak, I could do it here. And then I can rely on, a professional brewer where we're up at Riverwalk.
Okay.
And a few of my other brewing friends that are commercially, to kind of tweak my recipes a little bit, or say, hey, try this out, or maybe try that out, or maybe use a little bit too much of this.
Yeah.
That's one thing that I'm definitely very grateful for in the brewing community. It's very tight knit. Everyone's an open book. There aren't too many people that you wouldn't have a beer with in the brewing industry.
No, that makes sense. No, so my question is now obviously you're over up there, and so have you noticed anything different with the water that you have at your home and the water at Riverwalk, and how would that would, because I brewed in Acton, Massachusetts, and then Alston, and Alston water was like the best water that I've ever brewed with, and I came out with incredible beers. So do you notice a difference when brewing from your home setup to the Riverwalk setup?
Yeah, so when I first started brewing, I started using basically Poland Spring water. I was buying the 4 or 5 gallon jugs, whatever the store had. Some have the 4, some have the 5. So I never really used tap water because it's too hot. There's too much stuff in it.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff in it.
Or whatever you want to get into it. So as far as, where we're at Rockport is really hard water. So when we first started, like I said, we started using Poland Springs. Then I elevated my game, and I got a reverse osmosis system for my house. So my water is completely clean, and I build my profile from there. And as far as Riverwalk, so they use city water, but they have very soft water up there. So then they just add, their brewing salts and their chlorides, their sulfates, everything else to it to build the profile that we want. So they filter it a little bit, but not completely down to RO water.
Okay. I mean, you obviously know your stuff. How did you get into brewing? I mean, what kind of was the passion behind you saying, I'm doing this full time, this is it?
So I actually still work full time during the day, and this is I wouldn't call it a part-time job because it's definitely a full-time job. But the passion came from well, actually, I should back up there. So we came up with the business idea first, and it was a little bit of a joke, and then I learned how to brew. But while brewing, right after that first batch, and it was really good, I brewed New England style IPA, and it just hooked me.
Yeah.
So once you make something and everyone's like, oh, this is good, and maybe you should enter it into a competition, and then I did. I ended up getting second place in the Masher Maniacs tournament up in Maine.
Wow.
And I was super excited, and I was stoked, and I'm like, all right, what's next? What am I going to do next? And then that's just where it took off from. And I can't even tell you how many times I brewed. I stopped keeping track just because I do it so much.
You have to. You can't. You're gonna go crazy if you keep track of every time you brew it. I feel that.
Yeah, we started with 5-gallon batches, like I said, and then we bumped up to 14-gallon batches, and then I went to 1-barrel batches, and then we started having it brewed commercially up at Riverwalk. Yeah. So that's kind of our progression as far as sizing for our systems.
Yeah, no, I mean that makes sense. I mean, obviously you guys have done a great job, and I don't know if you're drinking this beer as well as I am right now, but
I actually got a
this
glass
is
right here. Let me pour some out.
yeah, you got to pour some out. We got to do this interview while you're drinking as well. So I mean, the can itself is pretty cool.
Thank you.
Where'd you get your can art from? And when you're brewing your beer, do you think about? And I ask this question about to every single person when you're brewing a beer. And you're like in the process, okay, we're gonna make XYZ, this New England style IPA. Do you have can art in the back of your mind? Because when I go to a store and I don't know the brewery, if they got some cool can art, I'm probably gonna buy it.
So no, actually. So we come up
You're the
with
first person to say that.
Yeah, so we come up with a recipe and then, just try to think of different things. So most of our beer is named after landmarks in Rockport or events or people, unless it's something that's very personal to me, like our dry Irish stout is named after my great-grandfather, who is a Irish immigrant, a World War I veteran, union member. He was an elevator constructor. He actually ended up dying on the job.
Oh, wow, I'm sorry.
An elevator down the seaport. So that one's very close to me. And there's a few others, but most of them are landmarks in Rockport, which are fairly easy. And it's, to be honest, it's kind of a cop-out because I don't have to trademark the name or any of that stuff because you can't.
As you can see here.
You can't trademark geographical areas.
You cannot.
So,
Smart.
You can't. So it's kind of it saves me a bunch of money on that end. But it's
That's
also
smart.
The community identifying with our product and our brand. Because it's not just about myself and my wife who are the founders of this. It's about our entire community. And, we're relaying that through our can art, like the one that you have in front of you, Twin Lights, was done by Stephen Mears, who's a local Rockport artist. Our hatchet was done by my brother-in-law, Quinn Ramini. Ben Nelson, he did our can art for our Kolsch, Cape Hedge Kolsch, which will be out next summer.
Mm-hmm.
It's just it's a crispy boy that you want to crush on the beach.
I love crispy boys.
Oh yeah. So I want to make this a community-oriented brand. I'm from South Boston, so I grew up in a very heavily influenced community as far as being involved and picking up your neighbor when they need the help. And that's what I want to bring to Rockport. We only moved up here 5 years ago, so I'm still relatively new to the community. And we're really getting ingrained in the community, through other avenues besides our beer. But our beer is kind of hyper accelerated that.
Gotcha. So, I mean, that's great. I mean, I really like the fact that you're trying to ingrain yourself in the actual community of Rockport, and obviously they love to have you as well. So I guess kind of my next question for you is, I'm not sure if you've done collaborations before, but if you were to pick one brewery to do a collaboration with that was in the New England area, what would it be and why?
Sure. So there's a couple of them. Like I told you, I'm involved in a homebrew club. I'm also a member of the Mass Brewers Guild. So I've had a very awesome opportunity to meet some very special people. I would be remiss if I would say that Matt Smith from Wandering Soul probably wouldn't be my first, just because I have a very special place in my heart for Matt. We've really connected over the last year and a half, and that's my right hand man. So
he's incredible. Yeah. I mean, again, I've had him on. I was going to go out in a bit, but I had him on for a while, and just such a cool dude, and was so down to earth, and I feel like a Wandering Soul Rockport Brewing mashup for a New England style IPA would just be what people want. So I'm gonna take that as my next question, and one of sort of my my last two questions is, what's your favorite brewery besides Rockport? Would you say the Wandering Soul?
Matt's definitely at the top of the list.
Okay,
there's no doubt about it. If we're talking contract brands, it's definitely Matt.
What about non-contract brands?
So non-contract brands, I really love True North. Guys I've really leaned on.
Moose Juice.
Yeah. What'd you say? Moose Juice?
Yeah.
No, that's
Great Northern. That's Great Northern Brew. Yeah.
Yeah. No, they got the Juicy Hazy IPA is North Maze.
Yes, the Northern. Yes,
that's what they're known for. Yeah. So them, Essex County, Gentilly, Backbeat, you name any of the North Shore breweries, you can't go wrong. East Regiment. You go down the list of them. It's incredible to see, just in the last 5 years, how many breweries have popped up. But they're not just popping up just to make beer. They're making great beer.
Yeah.
You know, and high tide raises all ships. So when you have a bunch of good breweries on the North Shore, everyone's going to start, you know, the hopping breweries, and it's going to, you know, high tide raises all ships, like I said. So, you know, everyone I think is going to capitalize off that, but you also got to be cognizant. If you're not up to snuff with everyone else up here, you're going to stand out like a sore thumb. So it also puts a little bit of added pressure onto you as well.
Yeah. What do you think about Old Planters Brewing?
Love them. They were a
Those
contract.
guys are awesome.
Yeah, they were a contract.
I love their brewing.
Yeah, so they're on the Beverly Beer Mile.
Yeah, they're right by Gentile as well, because you said Gentile, and I was like, I know, I've been to Gentile. I love the guys at Old Planters. Haven't been to their brewery yet.
Backbeat's right there, right next to them.
They're right next to them. Yeah.
Yeah, Pete's right at the train station.
Yeah. Awesome. So my last question for you is, obviously you said you're doing this part-time, you're not brewing at your own location. So distribution, I'm assuming is just you, but you know, kind of where do you distribute and how do you get the beers to the people?
Sure. So I just throw them in my truck and I bring them there. So a lot of it has been word of mouth. You know, we're at the point now when we're not making enough beer to give it to everybody that asks, which, you know, is a good and a bad problem to have. The good part is that we're going through beer super quick, but the bad part is I can't take on new accounts.
Yeah.
For where we're at now for capacity. So, like I said, it's good and it's bad.
Sure.
But I do it all myself.
Yeah.
You know, we were chatting a little bit before we got on here. You know, I just got home.
Yeah.
You know, I bring
long days.
Yeah, I took this week off of work to do a little distro, and you know, we have childcare issues with the daycare, so I had to
COVID,
to watch the kid and do this. But I'll sneak in a brew day tomorrow. I'll sneak in another brew day on Saturday to refine some recipes. I'm working on a lager tomorrow. I'm going to split batch of sour on Saturday.
I love sours. I love sours.
Yeah.
I you know, one of the things that I love is that I don't know if you've seen these sours before, but I got these bad boys that I had. I don't know if you've seen these before.
I haven't. Who's that from? Oh, the
450 North Slushies.
Yep. I've seen them online. I haven't seen them in person yet, though.
I finally got my hands on them, and they're incredible. We can talk offline more about them. But so back to you. So as you probably seen through when Matt and I did this and all the other people, we rate the beers 1 through 10. So imagine yourself someone, you know, like myself, who's never had Rockport Brewing Company because I can't get it anywhere. I would love to get it somewhere, but I can't. So imagine yourself sort of in my situation, having, you know, this beer for the first time. What would you rate this 1 out of 10?
So if I had to rate it 1 out of 10,
this batch, at least
a day after it was packaged.
Good to know.
So it was packaged yesterday up at Riverwalk. Typically the double IPAs, you need about, you know, probably about a week to really let it settle down.
Yeah.
For my palate, an honest answer, I would say.
I want you to be honest.
7.9. I would say 7.9.
Yeah, I mean,
I think it's up there. I think there's room for improvement.
I mean, this is one. I mean, again, for everyone who's watching at home, this is my first time I've ever had this beer, so I'm kind of sort of trying to immerse myself as much as possible and kind of collect all the flavors and whatnot. I mean, as you can see, it is a nice. You can't really see much because I've been going through it, but you know, it's a nice golden color. I mean, it's definitely a excellent style New England IPA. I would say I'm probably in the ballpark with around what you're saying. I would actually go 8.1, to be honest with you. I think, you know, you probably know your beer the best, and that you are looking for some tweaks. Myself personally, I think I'm going to change it 8.2. I really think that this is a great beer, and I would love to try it when you have sort of the final product that you're going to be mass producing, because I think that it's going to be taking off, and people need to know more North Shore beers. I think there needs to be more, and you're paving the way.
I agree. So a couple things that we've been trying to dial back is the little bit of sweetness that you get there on the front. You know, and it's a little bit rounder. We went a little bit heavier on the sulfates and the chlorides, like a typical New England style IPA.
Okay.
Just, you know, playing around with it, just trying to see from our first 2 batches where this one was going to be. So we knew it was going to be a very good beer, but we're just trying to make those small little tweaks here and there to make it where we want it to be. So I gave you my honest answer on my own product.
I appreciate it.
And it's a 10 out of 10, you know, because I am I wouldn't say a beer snob, but I do appreciate people being honest about their products, whether it's a restaurant, a brewery, no matter what it is. You know, don't try to pump it up just because it's yours. You know?
And that's why we're here. I mean, we're here to give people an honest adaptation of exactly what they're drinking. And, you know, it kind of gives a different light. So, Ray, thank you so much for joining the show. Everyone tune in next week for the next episode of Frosty Boi Fridays, and cheers and stay frosty.